raining again, and it's another brew day here at the Gable Road Brewery. Yes, I gave my brew system a name. How about that? Today I'm making a cream ale. It's a recipe I made several times last summer trying to lock it down, and I've got it pretty close. We'll take a look at the recipe coming up in just a bit. Right now though, we've got grains to crush and strike water to heat up, so let's get busy. For anybody curious about grain storage, I use a Vittles Vault. Got it from the pet store, keeps your grain nice and dry. For weighing my grains, I use a Rapala fish scale. Just hang my bucket from the scale, pour it in. For finer measures like ounces, hops, and those kind of things, I've got a smaller digital scale I use for that. My grain bill calls for 14 pounds, 8 ounces of 2-row. I'm using Brewer's malt because it was on sale at the local homebrew store. Okay, strike water is up to temperature, and I'm going to transfer it from the hot liquor tank to the mash tun. Last time, for some reason, don't know why, I transferred by going through the Herms coil and then into the hot liquor tank, or into the mash tun, excuse me. And my mash ended up being about 4 degrees lower than my target. I think I was losing some heat going through here, all that tubing. So I am going to go directly from the hot liquor tank into the mash tun this time. Eventually I want to try underletting, but I think I want to do that with a 5-gallon batch and a smaller grain bill. So let me turn on the pump, and we'll start transferring strike water into the mash tun. Six 0.6, a little over 6.5 gallons is what I'm going for. I'll keep an eye on my sight tube here on the side, and let's go. Now my grain bill is 14 pounds, 8 ounces of 2-row. And then I'm going to add my corn and my rice. Alright, now is when I want to recirculate through the Herms coil. What happens is I want my mash at 148 degrees. I've got my hot liquor tank here at 164 right now. I might bump that up a little bit to sparge temperature, 168, 170. But the control panel will sense through the temperature probe in the mash tun the temperature of the mash, and when it drops below 148, which is my target, it'll turn the pump on and recirculate the wort through the Herms coil and back into the mash tun. When it gets up to 148, or maybe a degree higher, it'll turn the pump off. Alright, the mash is up to temperature. My timer has begun. I'm going to mash this for 75 minutes. Let's take a look at the recipe. It's a cream ale recipe, and I took this from an interview on beersmith.com, their video podcast with Kurt Stock, and he just gave percentages and numbers. He didn't give exact specifics on what ingredients to use. So here's the grain bill. 78.4% 2-row, 16.2% flaked corn, and 5.4% flaked rice. The hops, I have always used lemon drop and it turns out great, but I wanted to see what Saaz gave to this. Maybe give it a little bit of a lager feel, a Pilsner feel. And then I read that Saaz and Styrian Goldings mix very well together. So I'm mixing Styrian Goldings and Saaz, 1 ounce each for the bittering shot at 60 minutes, and then an ounce of Saaz in the last 15 minutes. And my bitterness comes right under 20. It's 18.8. The estimated color, just under 3, should be a light beer. And the gravity, Kurt did recommend keeping it at 1050 or less, and I'm at 1047 estimated. We'll see how it actually comes in. This beer has been a winner with friends and family. Last summer I brewed it over and over and over again and couldn't keep it in stock. So if you want a good crowd pleaser, this is it. So while I've got a little time waiting for the mash, I finished up a project you saw the need for in the last video. My pumps, I had nowhere to mount them below the level of the ball valves. So I had them on buckets and blocks, and it was very awkward. So I built this shelf. I built it so it slides. I guess I don't have to. They sit pretty well right there. It may be a little bit lower than they need to be, but I can get at the tri-clamps, and yeah, I think that's going to work. Matter of fact, I know it's working well. Okay, mash is done. I'm going to start sparging into my boil kettle. I've got one hose already set. I need to move one hose here. I'm going to have to start setting buckets under there, I think. Okay, so that's hooked up. This needs to have a rearrangement. Okay, I've got a nice slow flow going on both kettles. I hope it's equal. All right, here's a shot of the boil kettle. There's the whirlpool arm. The level is slowly rising. Once it gets above that boil coil, I'll put the controller into boil mode. And then, over in the mash tun, you can see the flow better. Just a trickle. And I've got just a trickle coming into the boil kettle, and a little bit more than a trickle, but it's slow. That's what I want. Well, here's a little problem. When I last brewed this recipe in a 10-gallon batch, it was with my 15.5-gallon kegels. The boil volume is 14 1/4, just a little bit shy of that. These are just 15-gallon kettles. So when it got to 14-ish, 13.5 or so, it started coming out of the whirlpool arm fitting here. So I had a little bit of spillage. I've got a very full kettle. What are you going to do? All right, warts and all, I'm going to show you all my mistakes. Told you about the volume miscalculation. Obviously, with that much wort in the kettle, as soon as it started to boil, I had a boil over. Okay, I think it's calmed down now. I just have a bit of cleanup to do, a little bit more than usual at the end of the brew day. All right, here's another miscalculation I made. The hops that I bought don't match the alpha acids of the recipe. I just pulled hops out of the Beersmith inventory, and they're estimating much higher alpha acids than I actually bought. But I've got a package of Hallertau that was sitting in the refrigerator, and if I add that to my hop schedule, I should be real close to the 18.8% IBUs I was looking for. Matter of fact, I recalculated, and it looks like 18.7% is what this might be. So, crisis averted, lesson learned. Always check the alpha acids on the package against what you put into your software. Now my Beersmith timer is about to go off right there. 15 minutes left in the boil, so it's time to add my last addition of hops, my Whirlflock, and start recirculating wort through the chilling system to get everything nice and hot and boiling and sanitized. So, let's go. Hops. One of them hiding in the package. We need all of you boys into the pool. Alright, so this will go for 15 minutes. And then the boil will be done. Once again, just waiting for the timer to go off. Right there. Boil is done. We can turn off the heat and start the chilling through the counterflow chiller. Keep the pump on. I want to reduce the flow of the wort. And turn on the cold water. All right, because I ferment in the basement in the house, and with my back and hip problems, I can barely carry 5 gallons down the stairs, let alone 11. So what I do is I drain off 2.5, 3 gallons at a time, nice manageable bucket full in a clean sanitized bucket, take it downstairs and pour it into a clean and sanitized carboy. I'm using carboys today because my stainless steel brew bucket is occupied. So, it takes several steps, but I get it done, and I saved my back. It is brew day +1. I pitched the yeast at about 8 o'clock last night, and about 12 hours later I've got some activity showing in the airlocks. There's some nice krausen on top of the fermenters. I'm using my glass carboys, which I try to use as little as possible because they're awkward and heavy and difficult to clean, prone to breakage, but I'm using them because my brew bucket is already in use with the the porter that I made on Monday, April 29th, a couple of weeks ago. I will transfer that into a keg Monday. I fermented that at 66 degrees, and these last couple of days I'm ramping that up to about 70, 71. Try to drive off some DMS, if any. And yeah, this is where I ferment, in the basement. It's a mess, but it's got what I need here.
Brew.